This is The Morning Drive. It's Mira Business FM. So what happens when CEOs follow their passion? There's a question. More and more senior executives are swapping boardrooms for bold entrepreneurial ventures, turning decades of corporate experience into businesses built around passion and purpose. And Dutch Brothers Racing is one of those stories. It's not just about motorsport, it is about leadership, it's about calculated risk, it's about building a brand from scratch and proving that it's never too late to learn and to start something new. Dutch Brothers Racing co-founders Alan van der Molen, a global corporate communications and business transformation leader, and John de Jager is a corporate finance and investment executive. He's advised businesses, investors, and governments across international markets. Join me now. Alan, John, it's good to have you both with us.
Good morning. We're so happy to be here.
I'm great to be with you.
Question for both of you, but I'll start with John first of all. You've spent decades in, I guess, high-pressure boardroom environments. You've managed global communications, multi-billion-dollar finance strategies. Lots of people dream about turning a passion into a business. What finally made you take the leap?
So I think there are two things, Tim. The first is Alan and I decided that we needed to have some purpose to what was a hobby originally. And the second is that we wanted to put the same discipline that's applied in the boardroom to capital allocation and to how you invest with a view to long-term gains that we've been advising clients on in our previous and our current professional lives. So it's a combination of making a hobby with some purpose and putting that same rigor and discipline around it to try to create a business.
Alan, same question to you, I guess, but with a little addition. Why motorsport? And also, why now?
Well, look, I'm 61. I proudly claim that age. And, when this conflict started, we both wanted to look for things that were invigorating to us, that challenged us, that matched kind of the resilience that we were seeing in the environment around us, and at the same time gave us a real challenge late in our careers. So motorsport is something we both enjoy. We've never done, and we were talking about tracking cars, which a lot of people do, gentleman racers, as it were. And I was like, no, I reject that. If we're in, we're all in. Let's start a racing team. And in order to do that, we need to turn it into a business. And that's where we are, competing with ourselves, competing with others, and proving ourselves every day that our experience in the work life translates into the racetrack and vice versa.
So this is much more than a midlife crisis. This is a calculated business strategy. John, when these decisions were being pre-discussed, as it were, pre-decision time, why the business rather than, both of you just, it's a great hobby. It's perfectly natural to move into a new hobby at this point in your career, your life, I suppose. But you took the plunge and you're jumping in feet first.
So, Tim, I think the point about that was what Alan said. We could have had a hobby, we could have had a photograph and a nice track day, but actually both of us decided that would have lacked any purpose. What we're trying to build is a content-first platform, and we're trying to build a business around the story of the two of us, learning to race, going through the trials and the tribulations of what it means, to race, and to share that with as many like-minded people as we can. But the real impact here is that at the end of the day, we'll be proven on the track, and we'll prove that to ourselves and to our teammates, and hopefully it'll be a successful enterprise.
Alan, what's the biggest, I guess, lesson or even shock, perhaps, you might have had moving from the climate-controlled office in Abu Dhabi to the pit lane? What has racing been teaching you about risk that maybe, I suppose, a spreadsheet can't?
Literally looking through corners and looking around corners. That's the biggest analogy for me.
Right.
And the second thing is always stay in motion. You can be going slow, braking, you can be accelerating, but always be in motion. And how making decisions under pressure is the same on a racetrack as it is at a business. I think the other thing that's kind of interesting for me is as we've been getting started, all the men and women who are of our age group. John's the baby of the group here, still in his late 40s, and I'm the old man. But there's a lot of people in that sweet spot looking to challenge themselves while staying fully engaged in their careers. And I think the racetrack is also making me much sharper in my analysis of what I'm doing in the workplace every day.
John, there's a tagline that I've read, every lap has meaning. How does that philosophy differ from the kind of growth at all costs mentality that, so many corporate careers live by?
So Tim, the tag "every lap has meaning" is something that Alan and I coined when we first had the idea of Dutch Brothers Racing during the conflict, and ultimately it translates to every day has a purpose, and every aspect to our lives has a purpose. Everything we do has a purpose, and so what we decided was to try to build this platform around every lap has meaning. That's every decision we take in the business. That's everything that we do that's either right or wrong on our journey towards the business. And we believe that that's the same that you have in terms of a corporate philosophy or corporate mindset, which is every time you do something or take a decision as a business leader, there is an outcome. There is an aspect to purpose that you should be thinking about. So it was an interaction between the starting point of how we formed Dutch Brothers Racing, our professional experience, and then actually the fun part, which is it's going to be a real journey, right? And every lap has meaning.
Alan, you've obviously spent years in boardrooms. What lessons from your career have given you an edge or an advantage in your new business?
Don't crack under pressure.
Right.
Absolutely. Don't crack under pressure. Make decisions under pressure and overcome mistakes quickly. Look, on the racetrack, what's very interesting for me is you make a small mistake, you brake late, and then you're trying to correct it and you lose your entire time for a lap. Instead of braking late, realizing that, easing off the brake, and then consistently accelerating into the next turn or into the apex or out of the apex. And the same thing applies in business, that if you make one mistake, don't let it rattle you, because if you do, you're going to make another and another and another, and they pile up. And that is amplified times 10 on the racetrack.
John, you've made some headlines recently for a relatively unique recruitment philosophy. You've kind of moved towards veteran talent, Jos Verstappen, Max's dad, over younger superstars. What is it about that kind of seasoned edge over, the raw sort of youthful talent that you could have gone for?
So Tim, I'm pleased you've picked up on this. Firstly, the Max Verstappen recruitment was a starting point to a bit of humor in Dutch Brothers Racing, something that Alan and I hold close to our hearts. As you would have seen, the Dutchness was the only basis for his recruitment. And following a lack of following or commitment from him, we've decided to move on to his dad, the veteran, with a hope that we attract him more easily, Tim.
Look, there's also an age and experience, maturity level to this, right? We don't want these young punks messing up our timing.
I'm so with you guys. I'm between you two in terms of age. I've had enough of the youngsters getting in on the act. Alan, how different is it leading a racing team compared with leading a global company? Because I guess there are some unique challenges you face.
Look, I think what's interesting now is we're in startup mode, and in the racing team, it's an equal emphasis on the business because we need funding. This is a very capital intensive endeavor, and we also have to build our skills as racers. What's a little bit different in business is given, kind of our years of experience, we've got, I think, the core, let's call it boardroom experience. Um, and we kind of are used to finance. On the racing side of the house, we don't have the core competencies in the business that we're trying to run. So it's a night and day difference in terms of approach. So I have to look at Dutch Brothers every day as a startup, both in terms of what we're trying to achieve on the racetrack and what we're trying to achieve to get the funding to keep going. Much different.
Tim, can I add something in there as well?
Sure.
One of the things that Alan and I have seen many times in our careers is people that have been successful in one aspect of their professional lives, translating or transferring those skills and expecting themselves to be equally successful in other endeavors. And in our experience, there are certain skill sets that transfer equally between businesses, but actually the real skill is in identifying what you don't have inside the business. And so one of the things that we found or have been extremely focused on when starting Dutch Brothers is we've both got different experiences and different skill sets. We know very little / nothing about racing, which is why we've tried to find professional racing drivers and people that have gone through this journey before. And actually the thing that Alan and I find and prioritize most is listening to those people. That's a difference.
Do you know something that stood out to me, Alan? Is the Dutchness, right, of the team? But I'm interested. What does that actually mean? What is that sort of competitive DNA, and how do you instill that, whatever that is, into an Abu Dhabi-based platform?
Well, first, I'd be lying if I said we put a lot of thought into the name. We landed on the name because John's last name is Dutch. My last name is Dutch, and I'm like, so we're Dutch brothers. That's where we landed on it. And now we've kind of gotten into our Dutch DNA. We're thinking about trying to partner with Ancestry.com to check the backgrounds of all of our employees and future drivers. And we also think that there's a certain amount of hard edge to the Dutch that belies a sense of humor. And we're leading with humor, and our hard edge we're bearing a little bit. But we're exceedingly Dutch. We're gonna serve Gouda in the pit lane, and pancakes.
Really? So there's a cheese aspect to this as well.
There's a fine aged cheese, yes.
Alan's cheesy humor, Tim.
Well, that's working on me. I'll give you that for nothing. But anything to do with cheese is a winner, I think. John, so you don't just race. You translate these lessons, right, into leadership experiences for other businesses. That's part of this. So when say a CEO comes to you guys, Dutch Brothers Racing, for a leadership block, however it works, what are they really learning? What does endurance racing teach about leadership, or maybe, I don't know, decision making, or I suppose it's obvious, but managing pressure must be in there too?
So endurance racing, and why did we choose endurance racing? Endurance racing is a sum of the parts. And as Alan said, it's about consistency, it's about discipline, it's about recognizing that, if you have a low day or a bad outcome, that's not the end of it. And actually that the real prize comes much further down the line. So for us, the translation from leadership into endurance is keep your eye on the prize, which is probably much further down the road, proverbially speaking, than you think it is. Accept that there are going to be highs and lows on the journey, and then actually making sure you are as clear on what the decisions look like today and tomorrow, and how you're going to make sure you match those decisions with where your outcome needs to be. That's what the leadership and the endurance racing have in common.
Okay, Alan, in the boardroom, a bad decision there may be a very real trackable cost, right? In the car, it's very similar, maybe more. How do you coach executives to make better decisions under that very specific kind of pressure?
Look, I think our broad approach is understand all the information and data you have at your fingertips and use it to input and feed into real-time decision making. That's the most important thing. And then we amplify that through taking these folks out on the track so they can use it through driving. But the most important thing that I think we're bringing to this is use all the data that's in front of you, all the input you have, sift through what's important and not important, and make your decisions in real time.
So, John, I suppose in this, as there is in corporate takeovers or investment strategies, whatever it is, and in a race environment, there's reckless risk versus calculated risk. How do you, outline for the executives that join you to be able to distinguish between those two?
So the key to this, Tim, is for us to have a plan. And one of the things we made absolutely sure of when we started was the idea was born, we're going to have Dutch Brothers Racing. What do we want to achieve? We want to achieve participation in an endurance race. What does the journey to that look like? And mapping out the key milestones to what that looks like in terms of where's your training come from? What's the discipline around that? Where's your qualification come from? Where's the discipline around that? Each of these are milestones that are part of a plan. So within that, you can see where the costs sit. You can see where the flexibility around those costs is, just like you would do in an ordinary business plan. I think that mitigates the recklessness aspect. There will always be bumps along the way, but it's again ensuring that you are in line with the plan, you're consistent, and you know where you're going. That makes this the difference between a reckless behavior or reckless activity and something that's more calculated.
Alan, how's it going in terms of sponsors and partners? Because, I mean, this is a pretty competitive environment. Have you got a fine-aged Dutch cheese signed on the dotted line yet?
We're in active talks with two. So we're hoping to make an announcement here before too much longer. I'd say in August, we should be able to make our first announcement and hopefully have a nice logo on our helmet. As well, I host a little segment every Tuesday on our socials, on Dutch Brothers Racing on Instagram, called Sponsor Us Tuesdays, where I make direct pitch to sponsors. So we've got 4 or 5 of those out. Nobody's reached back out so far, though. Those are more of our cold pitches. We've got one coming up next week as well, or tomorrow. We've got one coming tomorrow.
John, can I zero in on the business lessons just a little bit? We've got a few minutes left. What mistakes do experienced executives still make if they're starting a new business? Because obviously this is a process you're going through yourself at the moment.
So there's 2 things there, Tim. Again, I think the one is, as I said, it's thinking that everything that you've learned in business translates or transfers to a new business. That's critically a mistake. And on this one specifically, we're learning this is much more about content and media than it is about motorsport. The racing aspect is almost the easy part. Finding the right media platforms, finding the right content, finding the right way to ensure you're able to commercialize something that is relatively ordinary is very difficult. And actually listening to experts, as I said before, in terms of looking at the testing, looking at the tires, looking at the preparation that goes with all of the kind of being ready for the track. That's something that I think we hadn't thought about before. So from an executive's perspective, the key here is the preparation. It's back to that aspect of the plan, right? Try to reduce as many variables as you can in the preparation so that when the inevitable things go wrong on the track or as part of the plan, that you are as prepared as you possibly can be.
Alan, is there a growing trend of senior leaders, I use that term advisedly, but maybe people looking at leaving corporate careers to build businesses with a greater, and you mentioned this earlier, a greater sense of maybe personal purpose?
I think maybe in the U.S. I think in the Gulf, I haven't seen it. I think the people I know in the Gulf are very focused on their current careers, but they're also looking for something and challenges outside of the office. But in the U.S., you see people, in particular those who don't have to worry about their retirements, which unfortunately isn't me, that are looking to do things with their the capital they've accumulated and whether that's with a personal purpose or some kind of greater purpose, put that to work.
John, what advice would you give somebody in their 40s or 50s who thinks maybe they've left entrepreneurship a little bit late?
I'd say get going. Honestly, the thing that we've both learned from this is get yourself out there, give it a go, and see what happens. I really have enjoyed the experience with Alan and with Andy so far. It's been challenging in many respects, looking at how we present the idea, how we bring followers on the journey. These are all mistakes that you can make in public, and actually from an entrepreneurship perspective, that's allowed us to be even more focused, as Alan said previously, in our day jobs. It's bringing different skill sets and different perspectives to the way we think about how we engage with our day jobs. And so I'd say get on with it. It's never too late.
It's never
Every
too
lap
late.
has meaning to it.
It's never too late.
Alan, I was going to ask you a similar question, but I mean, one of the things with this is that, you know, high performance isn't necessarily tied to age. So looking ahead, what's the ultimate ambition for Dutch Brothers Racing? Because it's a sports team, it's a media house, it's a consultancy perhaps for the future of work. Is it all of those things?
Look, I think ultimately be credible on the racetrack and translate the lessons that we're learning into things that other people can apply. That's really what it's about. And have fun along the way, and hopefully have a media platform that people find entertaining. But look, for me, be credible on the racetrack,
Right.
and translate that into lessons we can share with others in our situation.
And be sustainable.
Okay, there's a sustainable edge
it's got to
to
be a
it.
business. Yeah.
Okay. A couple of questions. I'm not sure who wants to take this. Anybody jump in. For an executive maybe listening today, maybe watching today, who might feel like they've hit something of a ceiling, they want to do something bold, maybe they're afraid of leaving the corporate entity behind, even their corporate identity behind. What would your advice be?
But for me, number one, make sure your family's on board, because you're going to need all of that support. Number two, understand your capital situation so you don't blow all of your retirement. And number three, believe in yourself. You know, have the belief to make the leap. But I think those other two are important precursors.
Sure. So in that case, John, I'll offer you the final question. Where do you see? Where would you like to see Dutch Brothers Racing in the next 5 years? And what would success of this venture look like, feel like, I suppose, for you?
So, one, that it's a sustainable business, Tim, so that it's that it's still going, that we've grown the platform, we've got a follower base that is aligned with what Alan and I have been trying to do, which is to explain the story of how two executives can take what looks like a hobby and professionalize it and make it something that's sustainable from a personal perspective and a professional perspective. So there's a few dimensions to that. Three, that we've actually got a bit more racing under our belts, and we've got some more challenges and some more successes and probably some more failures under our belts that we can learn from, and that we're still having fun, right? It really is as simple as that. That's where we started, and that's where we'll be hopefully in 5 years' time.
I have to wish you both all the best. I always feel like you can trust a guy that enjoys cheese. And I don't know, it's an adage that I live my life by. Alan van der Molen and John de Jager are the co-founders of Dutch Brothers Racing. Really appreciate you joining us. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Come to the track.
Have a great day.
And see us.
Appreciate it. Stay up to date with all our interviews and content via mirabusiness.fm.
Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.